Boom! We're back.
She's Heather.
He's Ferg, and additional noise is provided by our baby girl, the newest new old friend.
She's so cute. Anyway, it's day 2, December the 2nd. Unless you're listening to this later, maybe binging it at the weekend, or maybe you're having a blast of festive murder in the middle of July. Why not?
Anyway, Ferg, the case hadn't really started yesterday, but I have a feeling it will today.
Oh, now when you say a feeling, what do you mean?
I've read the script.
Aha! Strong feeling.
Indeed. Should we crack on with the Christmas quiz question for today? #NOFQuiz.
Yes. Question 2. According to the song, how many legs do you receive in total from your true love on the 5th day of Christmas?
How many legs?
Yes, I want them to add up the legs, just the 5th day. How many legs on the 5th day arrive from your true love? Simple stuff, Heather.
Amazing. Who saw that as a question? Okay, answers to us on social media, #NOFQuiz, or through our website, a prize for the winner at the end of the month.
Indeed. Now, on with the story. Crimes, clues, and Christmas.
Ding, ding, ding. That was a Christmas bell.
Great. Crimes, clues, and Christmas.
Crimes, Clues and Christmas. Chapter 2.
Being summoned to visit with old Rollins happens for one of 2 reasons. Either word has got around that a chap has come into an exceedingly good bit of fortune and the chairman is planning to touch them for a charitable donation, new silver for the dining room and so forth, or word has reached his, by no means diminutive, ears that there are grumblings around the club about a chap's conduct and he's stepping in to nip the thing in the bud by way of ultimatum. Stop the offensive habits or you're out on your ear. Sadly, I'd not enjoyed any recent financial windfall, so it was with trepidation that I made my way along the wood-panelled corridor leading to the office of Artridge Rawlins, chairman at large. I had a feeling in my stomach, not dissimilar to being called to the head's office back in school. Unlike those halcyon days, I didn't have a copy of Hamlet to snaffle under my shorts and protect my posterior from the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. More to the point, I couldn't think for what reason I'd been summoned. My tab was in good order, I made a point of staying on top of any round-based drinking, and I was enjoying a pleasing, but not suspiciously so, run of form at the card table, meaning I was actually slightly up. The only transgression I could think of was a recurrence of a complaint which had been levelled at me months previously, namely, my over-eagerness to tell the story of my adventures on the Isle of Liechtenstein the Christmas the year before. I'm sure you remember it. I was packed off to an island to hunt for the Fabergé bauble, but ended up getting embroiled in quite the most remarkable multiple murder case. I won't tell you how it ends, in case you want to listen to me telling the story of the Crimes Against Christmas in full. Solving that case had brought me quite a bit of the old fame, and I felt duty-bound to sprinkle some of my stardust about the place. You know, to give it an air of celebrity. Initially, my comrades at the club had been all ears for my tale of murder and survival. I'd enjoyed the respect and free drinks my newfound status afforded me. I fear, though, I may have, like an exciting child who has learned of a new magic trick for their birthday, overplayed my party piece, and in the intervening months the response shifted from, "Oh, good hell, Artridge is about to share his ripping yarn about the murders," through, "Oh, good God, is Artridge about to share his flipping yarn about the murders?" until finally ending up at, "Oh, hell, is Artridge about to share his yarn about the murders again? He's a One doesn't expect a member of the House of Lords to use language so coarse you could use it to sand granite, but there you go. As a result, I found myself in the invidious position of having to stifle my natural impulse as a raconteur and not launch into the story between the months of May and November. Now, though, as the festive season once more drew near, I felt fully justified in reliving my near-death experience. Should that be near dying? Anyway, sadly, my clubmates still felt this was too soon for a return to Liechtenstein, and thus I, like so many great artists before me, had taken solace at the bar. Here I found my perfect audience, a captive one. The captive in question was Wilson. Well, surely he hadn't complained about me, had he? I was sat on a hard oak settle outside of Rollins's office, and across from me was the desk of Florence, his wife and secretary. Florence has been a fixture at the club for years. There were some old photographs of her at dances of yore where she cut quite the figure. She was a real head-turner in her day, whereas now she was more of a head-scratcher. Her formative years of partying, dancing and drinking had left her with a detached way of speaking that left one shaking one's head in bafflement. But such was my anxiety about my impromptu meeting with her husband, I decided to try and get some information out of the enigmatic old dear. "Florence," I began. I had planned to continue, but her silvery head whipped up with a speed I wouldn't have credited her.
It's a city in Italy. They call it Firenze, though. I wonder if I went to Italy whether they'd call me Firenze or Florence. I don't think I'd respond if they called me Firenze. I don't speak Italian anyway.
As she spoke, she was looking at me, but at the same time her eyes were far away. In Florence, perhaps, gazing upon the Duomo. Years of experience had taught me the best way to deal with Florence was just to wait for her to return from wherever her flights of fancy had flown her, and then press on as if she'd never been away. "Florence?"
Oh, yes, dear. How are you?
"I'm very well, thank you. Or at least I hope I am. I was just wondering if perhaps you'd spoken to Rollins?"
Eldridge Rollins?
"Yes, Florence. Eldridge Rollins."
Eldridge Rollins, the chairman of the club?
"That's the one."
Eldridge Rollins, the chairman of the club? My husband?
"Yes, Florence."
Have I spoken to him?
"That's very much the thrust of my question, yes."
Of course I have, dear. We're married. Oh, it was a lovely day. I got a bit flustered when Eldridge's family started throwing things at us when we left the church. But it turned out it was just rice and confetti, which is standard, so no harm done. I apologise for swearing at them, but it was a shock, getting hit in the face with some basmati like that. I suppose that's why brides wear veils, is it?
"Couldn't rightly say, I'm afraid."
Oh, don't be afraid, dear. This was all in the past.
"Yes, of course." I was beginning to regret opening a line of dialogue with Rawlins's wife, but I pressed on. I was wondering more if he'd spoken with Mr. Rawlins today, and about me to boot.
About you, dear? No, I don't think so. But then we don't talk as much as we used to, I suppose.
No grumblings about good old Artridge needing a stiff talking to?
No. He does want to talk to you, though.
Yes, that's rather why I'm here. And you can't shine a light onto the darkness of my ignorance, viz. What this little conference might be about?
No, sorry.
With that, she went back to her typing. Rumour around the club was that she was working on a salacious tell-all account of her wild youth. If so, I'd be the first in line to read it. The woman clearly had the right attitude when it came to enjoying yourself. Roll up your sleeves and get right in. We only get one go around on this earth. Make the most of it. We sat in near silence for a moment or two. The only sound the methodical clicking of her typewriter as she banged away at the keys carefully, using only her index fingers. Then, quite abruptly and with no obvious prompt, she sat bolt upright and stared at me.
Eldridge will see you now.
Then she stood up and opened the heavy oak door and, to my surprise, walked into the office ahead of me. I followed her in, admiring the leaded windows flanked by heavy crimson velvet curtains and the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves chock full of leather-bound books, a mixture of old ledgers, memoirs of illustrious former members and a few collections of poetry. Dominating the room was Rollins's imposing desk. Legend has it that the wood was taken from the Mary Rose. Not salvage, mind you, but taken mid-voyage, which might explain the vessel's disappearance. It was beautifully carved, with all manner of exotic wildlife teeming across its columns and panels. The top was finished in a dark navy leather, upon which Rollins had arranged a pen stand, writing block, and some papers with military precision. Florence had taken up a seat just to the left of the desk, and was poised with her pen hovering over a crisp sheet of headed paper. Was I about to get my marching orders, and she was here to notarise the event? Her face gave nothing away. She was quite possibly still enjoying her mental break in Tuscany. Eventually I couldn't put it off any longer, and turned to face her husband. Eldridge Rollins is not the tallest of men. The photographs I've spoken of, which so flatter his wife, show that in his youth he'd hit upon quite the wheeze to give himself an extra couple of inches. To wit, he would sweep his hair upward from his scalp into a sort of crown. With enough Brill cream and youthful panache, he just about carried off the look. He'd persisted with it into his 80s, despite the fact his scalp had suffered the deforestation which pains so many of the older generation, meaning he only had the wispiest white hairs from the side of his head to whip up into a sort of candy floss-like concoction on top of his dome between his flapping ears. It gave the effect he was sitting under his own small personal cloud, or perhaps a thought bubble, like one sees in the cartoons. The face beneath the cumulus had not been subjected to the same follicle degradation as the scalp. His eyebrows, now white, were at least 2 inches in height, and he had an immaculately groomed beard in the style of Drake. His expression, though, gave nothing away as to why I might have been invited into his inner sanctum.
Sit down, dear boy. Sit down. Florence, did you offer Artridge a drink?
No, dear, I was busy writing.
Oh, yes. How's it going?
The old girl's eyes gleamed with delight, and she put down her pen, excited to tell her husband her latest work.
Very well. I've just been describing the night you, me, and the Hungarian prince...
Not now, my love. I'll enjoy you reading it to me later.
I'd not seen Rawlins flustered before, but it would be a better wordsmith than I to find a more appropriate adjective for the chairman, as he was reminded of whatever it was he, his wife, and the Hungarian prince had got up to. I really must get an advanced copy of that book.
Oh, yes.
Florence glanced over at me and blushed a little, a naughty smile playing around her lips.
Sorry, dear.
Not at all. Artridge, you'll be wanting a drink, no doubt.
I looked back at Rawlins, who somehow had produced 2 tumblers positively brimming with the good stuff, and was holding one out toward me. I accepted it with slight trepidation. Was I being given something to numb the impending pain? My anxiety wasn't calmed any when he cleared his throat and began.
Now, look here. I want to talk to you about your exploits on Liechtenstein. You were hired to find a trinket, weren't you?
My heart began to beat fast, but being the suave operator I am, I didn't let my worry show. The Fabergé bauble. I had to find it and protect it from the theft, but then things took a turn. I don't need to tell you the story. I've been very good. I've not told the story to anyone except Wilson for months. Please let me stay. Please, I'm begging you. I might have let it show a little now I think about it.
What are you talking about, man? Get off your knees.
Okay, full disclosure, I definitely let it show a little. I pulled myself up from the floor and retook my seat. Aren't you going to throw me out of the club?
Oh, do you remember that time you threw Lloyd Archer George through the French windows at Cannes?
Interjected Florence with a little clap of her hands. Her husband shot her a pained smile.
Flo, dear, what have I said about sharing your stories at the club?
Actually, because we were in France, I think they were probably just windows.
Rawlins shook his head in the time-honoured tradition of a man in love with a woman he doesn't fully understand, before turning back to me.
Of course I'm not throwing you out of the club. My understanding is you remember in good standing. I heard about your investigating skills and I want to hire you.
Hire me, sir?
Yes. As well as being chairman here, I'm also chairman at the ballet, and it turns out some of the jewellery's been stolen. I thought you were just the chap to sort it out and keep it out of the papers.
Isn't the jewellery costume jewellery?
You'd have thought so. But the damn fool director insisted on the real thing. Of course, now it's been filched, she'll have to make do with the fake stuff, even if you do get it back. Once bitten, twice shy.
You weren't shy when the Duchess of Burgundy was biting away at your earlobes on holiday in the Algarve, Eldridge, dear. And she did it more than once.
Florence, darling, please.
What else could I do but accept the case handed to me? At the time, I thought nothing of it except to earn a bit of the folding ahead of Christmas, entrench myself in the favours of the club chairman, and perhaps have a little festive fling with one of the dancers if the chance arose. But what transpired was more than I'd bargained for. Murder, intrigue, and enough danger to make even the most ardent thrill-seeker utter a swift, "Steady on!" Crimes, Clues and Christmas is a New Old Friends production, part of the Comedy Whodunits for Your Ears podcast series. Written and performed by Feargus, Dunlop and Heather Westwell, with sound and music by Fred Riding. New Old Friends gratefully acknowledge the support of Arts Council England in making Comedy Whodunits for Your Ears.